The boy stay really in the mood. It's a boy be near what he do. We back in this thing, what he do. Should be having this much good vibes going into this one, but I gotta keep my spirits up when we get into a video like this. And I guess I just thought about how I should do the intro because I start to agree with the sentiment of Boosie when we get into this conversation of Jeffrey Dahmer, man. After watching bits and pieces of the show, I'm not gonna act like I just know the historical facts of this and I'm we should ban the council. I'm not that deep. I'm not gonna even act like I care that much. I'm not that dude. But what I will say is I think it may have failed to put a few things in there as far as like I didn't know how sick this motherfucker was, and I don't think they could have put everything in there if I'm being honest. But the one thing I will say they did a good job about is talking about what a root and how this shit stemmed from. Like this dude was playing with roadkill with his father. He's playing with intestines and things like that. Because when I was watching them go through the house and they was pulling out skulls and they was pulling out the different things, it's like I was baffled at how he was able to perform these procedures because at the end of the day, bro, whether you know it or not, dealing with the human anatomy and just being able to basically carve out a human and get the skull out, clean out the deck, that's not an easy process. It's not something that you can do thoroughly unless you got practice. And I was kind of baffled at like how he was able to do these different things. So like he was making clean cuts. So it's just apparent that he probably had been practicing these things on animals for a long time, and the fact that his father didn't watch him, his father probably didn't care, or maybe even pushed him to do that. It shows how sick and twisted he ended up becoming because ain't no mother there, and clearly she was going through something as well because what she did to herself. But it's not much outside of that I could say. But man, it's definitely a crazy story. So I'm not gonna hold it up too long. I'm gonna get into a little Boosie real quick, and then we're gonna get into some more Jeffrey Dahmer. Little Boosie.
The strategy that you
What's going on?
All right, man. I ain't trying to clip nobody's shit.
Us as blacks, we need to ban this Jeffrey Dahmer movie. This is some sick shit. What he did to our race. This is some sick shit. We need to boycott this damn movie off Netflix. This is sick. This is sick. The victim family should be getting paid off every dollar Netflix made. This is fucking sick.
I definitely agree with that one.
We need to ban this Jeffrey Dahmer movie. This is some sick shit.
I agree with that. I agree with that. To a certain degree. Like I said, I'm not the person to get on that type of horse and die on that bandwagon or whatever. But I'm not mad at Boosie for stating that and feeling that way. I feel that him as a black man have the right to feel like that should be banned. And if I was to be honest, if they was gonna say, "Are you gonna stay out of it, or are you gonna hop on the bandwagon?" I'll hop in with my black people on that one. I'll be honest. I say I'm not super passionate about it, but I understand it. I can feel his sentiment, especially when, let's be real, we tend to give empathy to people. We tend to give sympathy to people, and when you show as a kid that he kind of was fucked up, it kind of makes us feel a little type of way because I start to kind of understand like, oh, he was kind of like despondent or like wasn't really normal as a young kid, so it kind of makes sense how it ended up like this. But even in my mind, it's like that's somewhat of a justification. That's somewhat of an excuse because I know a lot of kids that's mentally traumatized or mentally disabled, and they come on, bro, they're not even getting close to doing something like that. So it does breed a certain level of sympathy for someone that I'm not pretty at this stage in my life, I'm not sure deserves it. Maybe when I'm get older, or maybe I may see the totality of the universe, and maybe some type of alignment. I don't know, but right now, no, it's no type of forgiveness. There's no type of sympathy or empathy that I could give to someone of that nature, whether he was black, white, or whatever. Now, when you think about he attacked our people because he knew people didn't care about us, when you think about he was able to get away with it because he knew cops was racist and didn't give a fuck about us, that makes it even worse for sure. And that makes it even more of a reason why I was, if we were supposed to protest and cancel our Netflix, I would do it in the sense of if everybody was, not even everybody, if that was a movement, just because of affecting people dollars do make change. And if whether we like it or not, if we could band together for a week or two, that would hurt Netflix enough for them to make the change. If you ask me, it was similar to a lot of these Marvel movies that's coming out now. It's similar to the movie where the one lady that's and How to Get Away with Murder. I forget her name right now. Not I forget her name right now on the slaughter. But and the movie that she just made and how they kind of fucked up the historical relevance. People didn't go to see it, and I think Hollywood started to get the picture slowly but surely, where they kind of like, oh, let's stay away from this woke shit. Oh, let's stay away from not being accurate with things, because people are calling us out on that shit. And when I talk about us kind of be desensitized, I think if you're not gonna give the full express details and you're gonna make it like a entertainment show, it does lead to people being desensitized. There's no way around it, because it creates these conversations that's kind of childish on social media, people joking things like that. But I feel like if this was a truly like a documentary and not like a entertainment show, or like it comes off like a TV series in a sense. If it was more documentary style, where it's like just kind of giving it cut and dry what he did, photography and all this shit without all that cinematics, I don't think people are gonna respond without them jokes and shit. And I don't think people will be as desensitized to the situation of how egregious it really is. Because you even got people, I know people are trolls for sure, but they're like, oh, I might have been weak for him or some shit like that, or however they may have said it. So I think that Netflix doing that to a certain degree, and people doing, honestly, when you think about it, bro, making a slave show for entertainment, making these trauma filled fucking movies and TV shows and whatever, and making it to an entertainment form is kind of dangerous for real, for real. And it's kind of nasty. When it's something cut and dry and we clear about the shit, I feel like it's that's cool. Maybe it's boring or whatever, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being old, but I ain't gonna lie. When you start to think about it, like Django did a good job, but at some form of it, it's still a little entertaining to a point where we not really grasping on how treacherous that shit was. Like that bitch was in the box for like a week, and but the fact that he saved it like a hero, like maybe I'm being like minimizing that, but I don't feel like it hits the same versus like we getting a context of when they did this person didn't get to eat. This person would be dehydrated. This person will show signs of this. This person, like, you don't really get that in an entertainment show. So when you think about it, if it's not done carefully, they should be heavily criticized, because that is you playing with something that's kind of dangerous. It becomes like I forget the word, or I always can't say it right, but rechanging history. It's like a revisitism or some shit. I can't say it, but rechanging history essentially. And when you think about who's the ones fucking producing and who's the ones funding it, It be certain type of white people. It's kind of ironic that they the ones funding it, and then it's also in their benefit that we're not taking it as seriously either. So it's if it's done correctly, like I said, I'll take Django out of that. You got to be careful. So I don't mind Boosie. I don't mind black people criticizing it. I'm not gonna be one to do it too much seriously, but I get why black people are doing it. But hey, shout out Slim Hofer. Hopefully I said that right. Yeah, I think we should stand up. I think we should. I said earlier, if we were serious about it, boycott it, because them niggas would take that down if we canceled our Netflix for a week or a month. I'm being honest. I wanted to watch his last interview to kind of get how cold and um, just kind of see how much empathy he lacked. Uh, let's go with the one that's 24 million views. 43rd. That boy Beto, so I can't even say his name. He's so thirsty. He was like, Texas, we will legalize weed. Like, damn, nigga. Thank you, but you thirsty as hell. Man, I definitely think the family should be pissed off, especially when you. Oh my god, bro, this nigga had a whole dance routine. I was in a barbershop when I seen this shit. He's sucking on his finger. Then he do a whole like, basically like something what a female would do when she's stripping, taking her clothes off, sexy, maybe to some music or something. And that may be what dudes do in their relationships. I'm not judging it. That's fine, but I don't think I would want to see my family member depicted like that when they about to get murdered right after. I don't want, even if he may have enjoyed it and was entrapped and manipulated by it, I don't think that should be depicted. Like it, stick to him being a horrible fucking person. And I guess I get it, like that's a part of it, but I don't know, man. It just comes off a certain type of way, bro. Motherfucker dancing, they having fun with him. It's like I get it, it may have happened in real life, but it's just how they done it on that TV show, bro. It's just I don't know. It's too much for me.
Sensitize myself to it. I don't know, I went to great lengths.
He is pure evil, but you'd never know it by looking at him. But when you hear him, that's another story. His killing field was Milwaukee, and he got away with murder for more than a decade. But how could any of this happen? For the first time ever, Nancy Glass is here inside the world of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Bill, when I sat down opposite Jeffrey Dahmer for this interview, I wondered what he would tell me, how hard it would be to get him to discuss his horrific crimes. What I found was that he was very forthcoming. He volunteered details that may be difficult to hear. I began by asking...
I feel like she thought it was a surprise for him to volunteer them details, but he's so cold-hearted, he's not even thinking about feeling guilty. He's not even thinking about getting away with it because he just so like, I mean, cold-hearted to, I think, the whole situation in general. Like, maybe you could call that some form of psychopathy or whatever, but it definitely showed he didn't have any empathy towards the situation, because I feel like somebody that got guilt, they're going to cry, they're going to kind of change things up to make themselves feel a little better about the situation. He going to tell it straightforward. You can even say he was proud of the shit. You could even say that he was proud of it. It ain't even that he was so much just not having sympathy. He might just have been proud of the shit.
What he wanted.
We're going to see, though. We're going to feel the vibes.
I had these obsessive desires and thoughts wanting to control them, to, I don't know how to put it, possess them permanently.
And that's why you killed them.
Right.
Yeah, they change history and things like that to be like, oh, his so that in that answer, we'll be more mad at his dad than we'll be mad at Jeffrey. Even though in real life that never happened and his dad showed a little more sternness. So yeah, little stuff like that, they be tweaking, man. I remember watching Friday Night Lights, and them niggas never even made it to the championship game. I was like, what? They lost in like the fourth or fifth round in real life. But in the movie, they lost in the sixth round. I was like, they can do that? And ever since then, I was like, I kind of felt like a little WWE towards like things that they say are true stories and shit like that.
Right. Right. Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me. And as my obsession grew, I was saving body parts such as skulls and skeletons.
Jeffrey Dahmer is recalling his monstrous past. Almost 2 years ago in this little apartment in Milwaukee, police discovered the grisly remnants of one of the most horrible crime sprees in American history. Jeffrey Dahmer, an unassuming chocolate factory worker, would eventually confess that he had seduced, murdered, and dismembered 17 young men. He even ate some of his victims' body parts. He instantly became the center of worldwide media attention, a serial killer unmasked. There were protests and press conferences in Milwaukee as people tried to understand how this could have happened in their midst. How did Jeffrey Dahmer get away with murder after murder for 13 years?
Shit, white privilege. We seen that in the movies, in the TV show. While D-Fran said it on Absolutely Unsure, bro. All they had to do was check his license and ID him when he had that 14-year-old in his presence and seeing that he was already a convicted pedophile, or I should say pedo or whatever on here. But they ain't do that because they're like, oh, we're just going to listen to him. And then when the lady go to get evidence or go get some other witnesses and stuff, they're like, nah, we already figured it out, bro. Like, stuff like that is just like racism, and I ain't even gonna bring up classism. I think racism obviously is the biggest part of it. So when people act oblivious to it, like I guess that's a part of the blissful ignorance of racism as well.
How did a boy born into a hard-working middle-class family turn into the worst kind of monster imaginable? In this exclusive interview, we put those questions to Jeffrey Dahmer himself. We met with him at the maximum security prison where he is serving his sentence of 999 years. For the first time,
put a broom in this boy. That's crazy.
He talks about his crimes and gives us a chilling look inside the mind of a serial killer.
It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. When you depersonalize another person and view them as just an object for pleasure instead of a living, breathing human being, it seems to make it easier to do things you shouldn't do.
The reason why Jeffrey Dahmer was able to get away
It's in this time and era, it's so easy for them to do that with his dad, because with the male bashing and masculinity bashing right now, it's easy for us to believe that, but it's also easy for them to write that narrative to make it seem like he was the start of it. But I could easily say it makes sense that it was passed down. I could say that for sure. But you do pose a good question when you think about how media is so driven towards certain male figures being, especially fathers, being looked at as devalued or looked at as dumbasses. When you look at the persistent theme of media, when you see fathers as dudes that can't do shit, they need their wives, or they couldn't even fucking make it through the next day, essentially, just buffoons, essentially. So it's possible either way, honestly, but I don't know, man. I don't know. His father is definitely responsible to a certain degree, for sure.
with his crimes was because of just what you are seeing here. Jeffrey Dahmer is intelligent and articulate. That is what makes him so frightening. But if you listen...
Excuse me, my chair making all this damn noise. But that's like a bold to me statement to say He's very smart and articulate. Maybe he truly was, and he's just an evil person. But I don't like those adjectives. I think that's what it's called, or pronouns, whatever you want to call it. I don't like those descriptive terms of a person that just committed those type of heinous crimes. I can't lie to you. I can't lie to you.
Carefully to his words throughout this interview, you realize it is a thin disguise.
Like if I said that about the dude, if I said that about Hitler, if I said he was smart and articulate, that would come off a certain way. If I said Willie Lynch was smart and articulate, that'd come off a certain type of way. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, are you saying he had a point? Are you saying that he had some type of merit? Are you saying that you kind of understand him? Like, I hope that's not the case, but it's very dangerous when you think about the platform that they have.
You do sound, though, like the kind of person who could have said to himself, "This is wrong. I must stop."
I always knew that it was wrong, but after the first killing was not planned. I was coming back from the shopping mall back in '78. I had fantasies about picking up a hitchhiker and taking him back to the house and having complete control and dominance over him.
The hitchhiker's name was Stephen Hicks. He was just 18. Jeffrey Dahmer took him to his parents' house. There he strangled him with a barbell. He dismembered the body and hid it in a drain pipe. It was Jeffrey Dahmer who gave those details to the police in his confession.
No one had a clue as to what was happening for over a decade.
And then also you gotta think about them times too, bro. Like, it's not the same as these times. Like, the media, when somebody go missing, you can figure out where the last time they were at. Like, you could kind of see what vehicle they may have got taken in, because there's so many cameras, so many ways to track people. Like, back in the day, bro, him being a hitchhiker alone, people probably ain't know exactly where he was at for weeks. And when he came up missing, it was gonna be a rough estimate to where he could have been in the first place. Like, back in the day, man, it was kind of free game, and I guess that's where she comes from, but I wouldn't call that smart. I would call that manipulative, in the sense of he understands that there's certain type of people that, like hitchhikers, homeless people, black people, that is not cared about by society, and he could take advantage of a certain situation. You can call that smart, but I just call that kind of like predatory or like parasitic or something like that. I wouldn't call that smart.
During that time, Jeffrey Dahmer joined the Army and was sent to Germany. He was eventually discharged for a drinking problem and returned to Ohio. 9 years after Stephen Hicks' murder, the killing began again. What happened to you in the 9 years in between that you were able to stop, that you were able to control yourself?
It just wasn't an opportunity to fully express what I wanted to do. There was just not the physical opportunity to do it then. And I started, when I moved to Milwaukee in '81.
He truly had a fetish. He truly had a fetish. And when you come to fetishes, I think you gotta ask who opened up that box. Who opened up that Pandora's box before you even get like those seed implanted to you even have those fetishes? Because it gets to a point he has an itch he can't scratch. Like, let's be real. When he talked about it was shit that he want to do, my barber, we was talking about this shit. He literally, the head that was in the refrigerator, the mouth was open, and it was believed that he used to have sex with that head that he decapitated. Like, when it ain't even like, oh, I just wanted to stab him in his fucking Achilles instead of I wanted to cut him 100 times. Like, it ain't even no shit like that. Like, he had some very, very sick mental shit going through his head. It wasn't even that he was a serial killer. Like, this nigga was eating people, bro. I don't understand how someone can get to that. Yeah, I mean, that's some predatory shit, bro. Like, we was talking like that's some predatory shit. He's just waiting for the right opportunity, waiting to catch somebody slipping again. I seen your comment. They want me to hide it or show it, but he had his thing in the box. It was a thing in the box. He had some more things in the freezer and shit like that too. Like, bro, he was a different type of sick, man. And I know they tried to, like, oh, maybe it's the anesthesia, maybe his father playing with roadkill. Like, I'm still baffled to how you can get to this level. I like, there are people that have sex with, I don't want to say it. I know YouTube be sensitive with shit, but sex with people that have passed. Like, people that work in morgues and shit have been caught doing that shit. Like, that is a different type of sick, bro. Like, I know it speaks to how nasty this world can be, but bro, that's one of the, like, most unexplainable things that I may come across in my life. I can't explain to, like, I'm gonna be real with you. I can get how somebody can get caught up in the idea of tribalism and wanting to, like, get rid of another tribe, call it genocide or whatever. I can kind of, I get where people come from with the fear mind and shit like that. But having sex with a dead body, like, it's nothing fathom, like, it's nothing, like, I don't know, bro. I'm trying to get it from watching this shit, but it's not coming, bro. Like, different type of sick, bro.
Reading pornography, going to the bookstores.
We all do that.
Eventually that led to frequenting the gay bars. And then one time I brought this young man back to the hotel room, the Ambassador Hotel. Was just planning on drugging him and spending the night with him. Had no intention of hurting him. When I woke up in the morning, he had a broken rib here, was heavily bruised. Apparently I had beaten him to death with my fists.
And you have no memory
I
of it?
have no memory of it. But that's what started the whole spree all over again.
Dahmer says he snuck the corpse of his...
Well, I mean, he finally got his opportunity again. I believe that was the 9 years that he had to wait, right? Before he got to that dude. Yeah, no, that's so much cap. He gets to kind of gloss over a lot of things. Like, let's be real, they taking it easy on him. They're not gonna get to the real graphic shit like they should. If you're gonna do an interview about this nigga, get to the nasty shit, but you can't even do that. So why even do the interview? Because it's too graphic for media or mainstream media. So any type of conversation you're gonna have with him is gonna be light, which is gonna be kind of in his favor, technically, but
his victim, Stephen Toomey, out of his hotel room in a suitcase. Then he took it to his grandmother's house, where he cut up the body and put it in plastic garbage bags.
When you killed these men, afterwards, were you repulsed? Were you upset?
No, at the time, it was almost addictive. It was almost a surge of energy. I wouldn't have to worry about.
What he do at his granny crib? I ain't watched the series. I couldn't stomach it, bro. It's just too much for me. What he do at his granny crib, bro?
Any of their needs or anything. I just had complete control of the situation.
But Jeffrey Dahmer was out of control. The urge to kill had overpowered him. As police later learned, he wasn't satisfied with his victim's death. He wanted more.
Why did you photograph them?
It was my way of remembering.
I forgot about the photographs. Oh, I didn't know he was doing it at the granny house. Okay, yeah, I just heard him. Oh, I thought he said his parents' house. I didn't know they said the grandparents, but I guess it's the same in general. That first dude he killed, yeah, I heard that he cut off the head and shit. Like, and it, no, like no one's there, no one's coming to that house. I mean, I guess he wouldn't do it there if you know people coming in and out. I guess. What? Nobody had a. Somebody had to have an inkling, bro. Somebody that was related to him that worked with him had to have an inkling, bro. I'm pretty sure he didn't have so many friends at work, but god damn it, you can't tell me his dad didn't have a clue. His grandparents didn't have a clue. And then him taking pictures of this shit is just like a whole nother like level of like pride and taking like that as a trophy type shit. That shit's this shit was nasty, bro. I don't even know what to do. I don't even know how to describe it anymore.
Their physical beauty. I also wanted to keep something. If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons.
They had to have a feeling, bro. And I ain't gonna lie, bro. Think about how messy it is when you cooking. Thinking about how messy it is if you ever had to like fillet a fish or fillet anything that was kind of whole and you had to cut it into pieces. Like if it had like, bro, shit get messy, bro. Now think about cutting somebody, fresh blood. You got that draining, all that shit. Like, bro, he lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. Like, even if he was in a house, bro, when people be going through detective work and shit like that, it'd be so easy to see spots and bloods and spots that this person gonna miss, bro, because it's just too much to clean up and be able to. You're gonna be so drained cleaning that up, you're gonna miss spots. So if he was killing people, cutting people up, cutting heads off, that shit's so messy, man. And it wasn't like he was just doing it with a plan. Like, I mean, I know he said he had took out days and shit, but they didn't give details like he went to like Ace and got a blue tarp and laid the person down and shit like that, and then cut him up and then wrapped him. Like, they didn't really say he was being that specific. Like, one day he just woke up, beat the nigga ass. Like, he woke up, he realized he killed the man. Like, he wasn't being like super clean with it at all, bro. Cooking people like it. You can't tell me, bro. I smoked weed in my mama's house and she figured it out. Like, come on, bro. Like, you can't tell me that, bro. The lady smelled the dead possum from under the house. That was foreshadowing to how something so small can smell and fuck up a whole house. I was joking. I left some raw meat in my refrigerator, bro. That shit smelled like shit. It was only in there for like 2 or 3 days. And I was like, bro, what is that? You close the refrigerator, you smell it. I'm like, oh, whoa, we gotta get this shit out of there. Like, he had a whole dead body just sitting in the refrigerator for weeks, bro. Like, and he was having sex with it. The amount of filth and stank, like, who don't see somebody going under the house 30 different times? Ain't that many pipes in the world to fix, nigga. Digging, like, you can't tell me, like, unless he lived like in a fucking like no, like secluded, nobody by him, that makes sense. He was always giving everyone in his building meat sandwiches. Some of the people ate them in real life. Oh my fucking god, that's he is it worse sadistic? He's so sick, bro. He was enjoying that shit. Like he know people don't know it's fucking human, but like he's getting off on that. Like, I'm sure it's a mix of a power trip, but it's a mix of some other shit that's just like, it makes me think, bro. This is a pure example of how black people used to get treated when there was no rules. Like when there was basically it was free game on how you treated us, right? Jeffrey Dahmer's was more present. So let's be real. Like I'm thinking, like Jeffrey Dahmer's really not an anomaly. Like I had to start thinking, like he's not an anomaly, bro. Like he used to be like a hero. People probably used to talk about him as like if he was born in the 1800s and he treated black people like that, bro, he would have been like called Willie Lynch. He would have been called the Great Rape, the Great White Death or some shit. He would have might have had a statue back in the day. Like if I'm being real, bro, like how they used to treat us, bro, is similar to how he treated us. They used to bug break us. They used to, what do you call that shit when you cut our shit off? Not amputate, but whatever. You know, they used to chop our shit off and everything. So when you talk about power, it's that unchecked power and having no respect or disregard for the people that you castrate. Thank you, bro. Why would people eat from his nasty ass apartment? Nah, they wildin', bro. They wildin', bro. Yeah, I wouldn't even. It could be a sweet old lady outside. I might not even take her food. Like, how long you been having this shit outside? It's hot outside. Like, what are we doing? Like, I'm just being funny, but when you think about it, bro, like, he was probably not, I wouldn't say he was like how the average slave master acts, but the dude that the slave master had to punish him, the dude that the slave master had to whip him, I'm sure they was egregious like this nigga was. So he really just was a part of an older generation still moving a little too crazy for the generation that he was in. But when I start to think about it, bro, a lot of black people had to deal with niggas like this, and it wasn't no help. And think about it, he had 9 years to do it, however many years to do it. What? In the, I think my barber said the 70s or the 80s to the 90s, something like that. Imagine the 1800s. Imagine early 1900s, bro. Like the amount of people that got killed and shit like that with no disregard. Yeah, 70. Yeah, thank you. My boy, historical fact checker, boy. I tell you that.
Planning on
Joe Rogan,
an altar.
Jamie, can we get my boy accurate?
With
Are we sure about that, Jamie?
Skulls and skeletons.
And what was the purpose of the altar going to be?
As a sort of memorial. A point where I could, I don't know. It's so bizarre and strange, it's hard to describe. A place where I could collect my thoughts and feed my obsession.
When the bodies were still in your apartment, there was no time when you would see them and say, this is grotesque, what have I done?
There were times, but the compulsive obsession with doing what I was doing overpowered any feelings of revulsion.
This man with a quiet...
The things that he was doing, like the attraction to doing that, the urge to do that, the itch to do that, was more stronger than his repulsion. And it's not that we just talking about the dude just shooting somebody and having to go dig a body. Bro, like, he's in a house full of filth. Like, I'm sure even the TV show kind of like they walked through and it took a little minute before they found some shit. I bet it was even more egregious than that when they first walked in the house. He covered his nose before he walked inside the house. But I'm sure when you walked in, it was a lot of visual evidence before they found them pictures. But for TV purposes, you know, they had to, whatever. But when you think about someone being able to just, like, nigga, think about living by a dumpster all your life, nigga. Think about, like, sleeping in a dumpster with active garbage juice in it, active new trash, active baby diapers, active old food. Like, that's what he was living in, bro. And he's like, oh, my urge to fuck dead heads. Bro, I know all people and all races have some very nasty sides of them. But this is just a nasty side, bro. Like, it don't get no nastier than this. From humanity, of course. But then when you talk about, like I say, American white people, bro, and some of the shit that they did, like, bro, he's a reflection of that shit in modern times. My barber said, because somebody brought up that same argument, Slim. My barber said that makes sense, but even then, like, maybe if you had one body in there, maybe if you had a filtration system full of chemicals. But the fact you got 3-4 bodies in there, they all on different stages of decomposition or whatever. I'm slaughtering that word. Like, that's like, it's hard for. Plus the bodies in the refrigerator, bro. Maybe people just don't know what dead animals or dead things smell like, but I'm sure it smell like both. Like, I'm sure it smell like both, bro. Like, it's no way, bro. You can't, like I said, I left raw meat in the refrigerator for 3 days, bro. For 3 days. That shit stunk. A head, a penis, and some wrists and hands, nigga, like, just loose.
Almost shy demeanor became a master manipulator who was able to lure strangers he met at gay bars to his apartment. He was even able to con the police into returning a 14-year-old.
I know he smell like shit.
After neighbors called 911 upset that the child was in the street naked and bleeding. Dahmer convinced the police that he and the boy were simply having a lover's quarrel.
I'm pretty sure they gave a accurate, like a picture close to that, how that 14-year-old boy looked. I'm sure that wasn't like a picture when he was 8. I'm sure that was close to when he was 13, 14, maybe even 12. It's fucking clear as day that that kid ain't no fucking adult. Then we're gonna talk about the nigga probably was like 4 foot something. He probably had the bone structure of a fucking 12 or 13-year-old. Come on, man. How many Asians look growner than they are? Like, come on, bro. You know he looked somewhere close to that, bro. The cops was just, that's a part of racism, bro. I mean the white shit and the racism and whatever you call it. The white privilege is what I was trying to say, not racism. That's a part of that shit, bro, because it's no way you look past that because of any other reasons, bro. There's no other way. There's no other way.
But the child was in the street, naked and bleeding. Dahmer convinced the police that he and the boy were simply having a lover's quarrel.
It's an intoxicated boyfriend of another boyfriend.
And my barber, we did talk about this too. He was saying, or everybody was kind of talking about, like, how people were just like, oh, that's some gay stuff, so we're going to stay as far away from that shit as possible. So that's a small part of it, but that only goes so far, bro. That only goes so far.
It wasn't a child.
Because I don't give a fuck. If I see 2 gay people in the street and one of them gets stabbed, I ain't going to not call the police because I'm going to be like, oh, that's some gay shit. Like, if a motherfucker in the street bleeding, whether that's his boyfriend or not, this should be of some concern. And even if he was of age, even how they handled it was crazy. The gay stuff is definitely an element of it, but that only goes so far, man. That only goes so far. He was definitely pushing it. I'm sure that helped him a few times, along with being white. He was manipulative for sure. But if you see a young man in the street, bro, bleeding, I ain't about to just be like, oh, this is a gay domestic dispute. Well, maybe that's just me, but I don't even think an average person would do that.
After the police left, Jeffrey Dahmer murdered that boy, Conorak Synthesome. This man says he had a near-fatal encounter with Jeffrey Dahmer.
He wanted to take some picture of my back. He hit me with a rubber hammer on my neck.
He was
Boy, he lucky, because that was any type of other hammer, he fried.
lucky to escape because by then the killing had become almost routine.
Before you went out to pick up the man, was there any kind of ritual you went through?
I go to the nightclubs, drink, watch the striptease shows. And if I didn't meet anyone at the bars, I'd go to the bath clubs and meet someone there, offer them money, and we'd go back to the apartment, have a few drinks. I'd have the sleeping pill mixture already prepared. Person would drink it, fall asleep, and that's when they would be strangled.
Watching the
Okay, that makes more sense how he was so effective. Like I said, I didn't watch the show, so I'm out of the loop a little bit on some things. But that makes sense why he was so effective as far as like, I'm sure he wasn't the biggest and strongest dude. I mean, he looked a little athletic or in shape, but I'm sure if somebody really wanted to fight him, they could get away and things like that. So when he tried to use brute force like a hammer and shit like that, he ended up fucking up and shit like that. So I feel like it makes a little more sense because it's not like you fighting these people that screaming and things like that. It make a little more sense how he could get away with it, but ignoring it, you gotta ignore the smell and so many other obvious things for that to be a valid point to be like, oh yeah, I can see why he completely got away with it.
movie Exorcist 3 was also part of his ritual. It put him in the mood for murder.
I felt so hopelessly
Demonic
evil
ass.
and perverted that I actually derived a sort of pleasure from watching that tape.
Did you like feeling evil?
No, I didn't. But I had tried to overcome the thoughts, and it worked for a while, but eventually I gave in.
While Jeffrey Dahmer may say things today that make it seem like he understands what went on in his mind, he does not. All he can do is tell you what happened, but he cannot stop whatever it is that drove him to kill in the first place.
Do you still feel those same urges? Do you still feel that compulsion, that obsession?
I wish I could say that it just left completely, but no, there are times when I still do have the old compulsions.
Jeffrey Dahmer says as time went on, his mind became more and more warped, and yet he was clever enough to continue to elude police and lure young men to his apartment. We should warn you, the details are very graphic.
I started having these obsessive thoughts when I was about 15 and 16, and they got worse and worse.
What were your fantasies about?
They were sexual fantasies of control, power, complete dominance. They became reality.
Was there...
Ain't no just magazines and pornos gonna get you on that type of vibe, man. I don't, even at the age of 15, 16, to be like, of course we be interested in sex, but we still shy and we still learning a lot of shit. A lot of serial killers can't get off sexually without killing. I'm sure that's a thing, but I'm just saying, like, at 16 years old, how do you get there already? Like, was he dominated in some aspect? It just don't, like, I just don't. I'm trying to, like I said, it's something that's kind of something I really can't fathom of why this person ended up like this, but I'm just trying to kind of get a grasp. Like, how do you end up like that, bro? At 16. Like I said, we like sex. We want to have sex at that age. We're curious. We're seeing some pornos and we're curious and want to try some things out. But I gotta question his influences and the people in his environment. Like, was his father showing him some shit that he wasn't supposed to be seeing? Was his father doing something to him he wasn't supposed to be doing? Was his friends into some shit? Because I've seen some nasty sides of the internet. Like Pain Olympics, if anybody's seen that shit before. I don't know how you get into that shit. But was he around some people that was like on some shit like that? Cause you like, bro, you have to like. You're not in the normal part of like. You're just not normal, bro. That's not a normal train of thought as a young person. Like I can even say like maybe you get older, it's like yeah, I'm gonna tear that ass up. I'm gonna dominate. You can be confident and aggressive in the idea of how you talk about sex and how you may theoretically approach sex, but that's not something a 16-year-old would do. So of course we know he's not just talking about dominating somebody in a sexual way. He's talking about even more than that. But it's like I said, it's a little over my head how someone end up like that so young. But 16 to me, like that's still very young, bro. Most people still be virgins at 16.
Pleasure in that fantasy?
There was excitement, fear, pleasure, all mixed together.
Jeffrey Dahmer fulfilled his fantasies by murdering and dismembering 17 young men. In time, his desires became more extreme, his deeds more grotesque. Listen to him talk about the most unnatural things in the most matter-of-fact of ways. That's when you realize that none of it has touched him.
I was branching out. That's when the cannibalism started, eating of the heart. And
I forgot he did that shit.
It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me. At first, it was just curiosity.
That's one when I talked about when she said he was smart and articulate. I'm like, bro, nobody's smart and articulate saying shit like that. Unless you want to talk about some old tribal shit. But we in modern times, so ain't nobody fucking modern thinking like that. Like, and the motherfucker, if they do eat a heart, it's of a fucking deer or some shit. Like, I don't know what level of brain trauma, I don't know what level of anything could get somebody to that, bro. Nigga, I had the hardest time eating mushrooms all my life. This nigga's eating whole raw hearts. Nigga, I don't like beets. Like, a heart, nigga? He's an animal. He's a fucking animal, bro. That. He's worse than an animal. Because even animals don't behave in that manner. Oh, he was cooking them like steaks. Okay. That's still fucking crazy. That's still fucking crazy. That's still fucking crazy. Like, he was eating orange steaks. That's fucking crazy. I don't remember where I heard these stories when I was younger. I don't remember if it was school or what. I don't think they taught this shit in history, but I remember hearing about the serial killers of the past. But you don't really get into details and shit like this. But my barber was like, that's what Hannibal Lecter, like that movie was based off of. He used to eat their bodies and all that shit. And then it made me think about some other movies where it's like what he do and how he was moving is similar to how like some of the most scariest villains of like a certain era that used to create movies of like that Hannibal Lecter time where they had those people. Like a lot of them was based on these niggas. I didn't know that. Even like obviously Texas Chainsaw Massacre is real, but they pretty much move the same as far as like how they behave. They cut the bodies up and all type of shit. But I can truly say they behave like animals, but even worse than an animal. Because I can't even think of an animal that sleeps with dead. I can't think of an animal that sleeps with dead carcasses or play with dead carcasses outside of eating it. And even if it was dead for a certain amount of time, unless it was a scavenger, it's not eating a dead animal that it didn't kill or didn't see get killed by another animal. Like they're not even acting animalistic. Because I talk about people in survival mode being like that. He's worse than that. So, nah, it's coming to me now, like how sick this person is. But yeah, he was. I don't even know what you call it. He was less than an animal. But they said we was 3/5. We was 3/5. They said we was 3/5 to some dumbass shit human. Which, to give y'all a little game, we not all human because they gotta leave a little room for God. So yeah, we like 3/5 human and then the rest is God. That's the key to the shit. Being funny or actually being realistic. But he was like he behaved and acted 3/5 of an animal, not even 3/5 of a human.
And then it became compulsive. Then I tried to keep the person alive by inducing a zombie-like state. By injecting first dilute acid solution into their brain or hot water.
Yeah, I've seen some high totals, bro. I've seen some high totals like, and these are the people that got discovered. These are people that got discovered. Imagine people that didn't. Like 218, 250, like them some big numbers, bro. Certain gangs, like certain historical gangs haven't even killed that many people. Like one person killed that many people. Like now I'm not talking like Crips and shit like that, but if we was talking about like old historical like mobs and shit like that, 250, nigga, that's a lot of motherfuckers. And the doctor, I get it to a certain degree how you can kind of come across so many people and people may not pay attention to it, but 250 and people not noticing something with you, nigga. Bro, in this day and age, you can touch two women in the club at different times on the ass, and people gonna start. They can tweet about you, and they gonna come up with all type of theories on how you the most evil person in the world. Nigga, you had 250 people that don't know each other randomly somehow all come up missing, and they all know you, and niggas not drawing no red flags going off. No assumptions, no theories, no conspiracy. Like, what are we doing? Like, so like at 20, niggas should have been like really at 2 or 3. It's like, damn, nigga, like you had 3 patients. Okay, as a doctor, maybe like 20 because you're a doctor. But you said from 1972 to 1988. Yeah, so maybe he had them spread out at first, but at a certain point, like at 20, nigga, like. You wildin'. And as a normal nigga, I seen like a normal black dude, he had like 100 or something like that. Like, I don't see how you can get away with it. And I mean, I know back in the day, but even then it's like, bro, no one caught you, bro. No one seen you, bro.
It never did.
Ever?
Could someone like you be stopped? Could you be helped?
No, I was dead set on going with this compulsion. It was the only thing that gave me any satisfaction.
He became so warped by his evil impulses that he even took a victim's head with him to work at the Ambrosia chocolate factory.
I kept the mummified head and skull of one of the victims in a carrying case in my locker at work.
Were you almost flaunting it?
Yes, but that's how strong.
No, someone had to be like, this nigga stinks. Everything about this nigga stinks. You gotta know his personality gotta be weird. He can't be a good people person. Then for some reason, this nigga stinks. Like, niggas don't brush their teeth. Niggas don't take baths, and niggas used to get kept on in the hood. Walking around with a dead body? Yo, mama tell you smell like outside, and you might have been out there for 5 minutes. Damn, you smell like wet puppies. A nigga carry around dead bodies?
That's how bizarre the desire was. I wanted to keep something of the person with me.
Jeffrey Dahmer exhibited some disturbing behavior early on. He began drinking heavily as a teenager, dropped out of college, was arrested for indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, and fondling a 13-year-old boy. Tragically, one of his murder victims would be that boy's brother.
Do you know what started it? Was there any kind of incident that you can remember?
To this day, I don't know what started it. And the person to blame is sitting right across from you. That's the only person. Not parents, not society, not pornography. I mean, those are just excuses.
His macabre 13-year crime spree finally ended when this man, Tracy Edwards, brought the police to the infamous apartment. Like the others, he had gone there with the promise of money.
He was listening to my heart because at a point he told me he was going to eat
like some chicken tenders. Just chicken tenders, though.
And I ran.
What was the turning point for
Barbecue
you
sauce
that made you suddenly realize that you had done something terribly wrong, something you should be sorry for?
It was the night of the arrest. I have no memory.
I guess you can get the meal.
Happened during the 6 hours.
I'm tripping.
Before,
I'm gonna get a drink.
The last victim ran out of the apartment. I heard a knock on the door, and the police were there with the last victim.
A large.
They asked me where the key was to the handcuffs. My mind was in a haze. I sort of pointed to the bedroom, and that's where they found the pictures. And they yelled, "Cuff him." And I was handcuffed. In the 6 hours before the last victim ran out of the apartment, I heard a knock on the door, and the police were there with the last victim. They asked me where the key was to the handcuffs. My mind was in a haze. I sort of pointed to the bedroom, and that's where they found the pictures. And they yelled, "Cuff him." And I was handcuffed. And it was just the realization that there was no point in trying to hide my actions anymore. The best route was to help the police identify all the victims and just make a complete confession.
When it was
Once again, that's too much sympathy for me. That's too much. Give me a little sympathy because I did the right thing at the end. I'm not rocking with that. I'm not rocking with that. I don't like how the media let him get off that shit. Inside edition, you did horrible with that. I ain't gonna lie to you, because you gotta think about it. I'm looking, how I see it is more of I'm caught. It is what it is, but let me show y'all what I've done. Let me show y'all my work. Because I stayed away from the conversation of calling him an artist, but we're gonna put it on the table and I'm gonna give context to why I thought it. He looked at himself as a form of an artist. He had this itch, he had this idea that he wanted to get across, and when he did it, he took pictures of it and admired it as if it was art. It's not. It's not. It's just fucking sick. It's nasty. But to them, it's beautiful. So when he get caught, he wants to show people his work. I don't think it's because he feels a fucking way about the people and the families and helping the police department, but they let him get that shit off.
Revealed that most of the victims were black or homosexual. People in Milwaukee were incensed. Many felt that was why he went after them and why the police didn't seem to care when their families reported them missing.
10 of your 17 victims were black. Were they racially motivated?
It was not racially motivated. It was not sexual preference. It was just to find an obsession with the best-looking young man I could find.
While you just heard him say that his sexual preference had nothing to do with the killings, he has not come to terms with his homosexuality.
Never understood it. There was no use trying to fight it because I couldn't rid myself of it. It was too powerful and persistent.
Do you dislike it?
Yes, it's caused a lot of problems for me. A lot of conflicts and a unanswered questions.
The conflicts remain with him, and so do his compulsions. But in prison, he finally cannot act on his savage desires.
If you were out on the street now, would you still be committing the crimes?
Probably. If this hadn't happened, there's no doubt I probably would be. I can't think of anything that would have stopped me.
He can't think of anything would have stopped him. That's crazy. That's crazy. He felt no guilt. He felt no guilt. And he wished he could keep doing it. Oh man. We're gonna watch this true crime. We're gonna skip through this a little bit. It's gonna get a little graphic if you guys are still with us, but I want to get into the real funky details of things if we're gonna really talk about this man.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm here with Sanjay, and
Nobody give a fuck about Sanjay, nigga.
I actually purchased one of my pre-built Shopify brands for $17, and the store has had some.
Sanjay off the screen. I'm childish.
Shortly before midnight on July the 22nd, 1991.
I'm a grown ass man. Them last niggas I already felt I ain't like the energy from the jump. I'm too positive.
Jeffrey Dahmer murdered 17 young men.
Yeah, give me that monotone shit.
Over 13 years. He would cut open his victims for his own sexual pleasure, preserve their severed body parts, and towards the end eat their thighs, biceps, and hearts. But how did this once apparently innocent child turn into one of the world's most gruesome serial killers? Did circumstance drive Dahmer to carnage and cannibalism, or was he born to kill? Middle necrophilia and
I ain't gonna lie, I guess through time they took different pictures, but the dude that was at trial do not look like the dude that's in these pictures. I keep noticing that. I don't know why that keeps popping up in my mind, but every time I see it, it's just like, this does not look like the same dude.
Cannibalism.
Even the dude in the interview was like, I mean, I can see a resemblance, but even if he got chunky, I'm just not seeing it.
You think of the crime.
But I'm not a fucking genius, so I can't call that one.
Crimes that he committed, they're so horrific, you kind of think only a madman or somebody totally evil incarnate would do this. But when you talked with Jeff Dahmer, you just did not get this idea. He could be engaging, he could be bright, witty, he could make jokes. He was able to fool a lot of people.
People that worked with him had no idea that he was a violent man. This was part of the real danger of Jeffrey Dahmer. He could join you or me at lunch and no one would detect that he was a violent person.
Jeffrey Dahmer on the surface was not.
Maybe when he was a kid, but I ain't gonna lie, I think that's a part of that white privilege we're talking about. Cause I refuse to believe it would be the anomaly, not the average or not the normal. Most people that been in jail or most people that behave in a certain type of or in certain type of activities, let's say they get a certain type of PTSD, they get a certain type of movements and traits that a normal person clearly wouldn't show. Like the body language and a lot of things of that person, it's just not the same of a normal person that's just going through life, bro. It's just real with you. Like, you can feel it, bro. When you come around somebody shiesty that's been robbing people or like that's always getting over on people, you be like, I don't really want to be around this nigga, because you can just feel the vibes. It's not a homely feeling around certain type of people. Like, and you gotta think when somebody has murdered someone, bro, the thoughts that go through their mind, the 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 lack of normalcy or normal, the lack of normal in that person, bro, would be so apparent to at least I know me, because ain't nobody gonna be an active. I mean, I gotta take that back. I gotta take it back to a certain degree. But I feel like if you was consistently around somebody and they consistently committing murders, it's hard to make that argument. If you're around this person maybe once or twice, may have had one or two engagements, I still think you should probably come off like, man, that's probably a weird fellow. And when it comes to the working shit, like, yeah, you may not know him because it's easy to stay disengaged at work, but once he started bringing bodies and shit like that, and even outside of that, I'm sure his social engagements was not as cool and kosher as they trying to make it seem.
A abnormal appearing individual. He's
I just
good
don't.
looking. He's well spoken. He was articulate.
Never in a million years would I have guessed a homicidal maniac.
To me, he's always been really a tragic figure, which is kind of hard for a lot of people to understand. But I don't really think of him as, you know, the serial killer monster. I just think of him as this kid who was spiraling out of control and nobody stopped him.
Jeffrey Dahmer grew up in the small rural town of Bath, Ohio, a middle-class boy from Middle America.
This is what happened on Spare the Rod.
Robert Ressler, an FBI behavioral...
Because what they just said is some soft-ass shit. Like, I've I've been around men of integrity of all races. I don't think no man with integrity even make that statement that dude just said. At some point, you gotta hold a man accountable. If you can go through all them fucking actions, nigga, you ain't just no kid no more. If you can take a fucking man's life, you ain't no kid no more. And that's the same thing when little kids go to war. That motherfucker ain't no kid no more. A little kid killing, he get one body on the street. That nigga not no kid no more. So I'm not about to treat him like one, because he a murderer, grown ass man. He doing big people shit. So a man of integrity, a man with some fucking wisdom would never say that. And that just go to maybe because it's they type of people, though, that's they people, or maybe because they don't really give a fuck and they like that shit, bro. I don't know. I want to call it right privilege, but then I think we should be pressing the button towards he was in an environment that spawned that shit. And it was these type of people, these type of men that's speaking right now, acting all like he was smart, he was articulate. Because they was planting these seeds in him. Maybe not them directly, maybe they don't fucking know him, but I think they was actually, these are people that had personal counsel with him, actually. But I think these are the type of people that was probably racist, probably talk shit about gays, probably talk shit about black people while he was young, along with his father showing him all type of shit about dead things and shit like that. I'm sure there's a bunch of compounding things to why he ended up being this way. And when I start seeing these people justify or give leeway or try to create empathy for him, it just goes to show that in a normal environment, that shit should be castrated. That shit is a cancer. But for them, of course it's not affecting their people. And I think it's even more outside of that. They like who it's affecting. They like that they put that cancer, like they like that shit, man. You gotta think what era we were in. Like, we still see the racism and shit today with the Sons and all this shit. We were like 30, 40 more years back, 70s, nigga. Racism and slavery was still fresh in people. It was still in people's hearts of in America, for sure.
Analyst and the man responsible for coining the phrase serial killers was called in to interview Dahmer. His years of experience interviewing serial killers such as John Wayne Gacy gave him a unique insight into Dahmer's mind.
There is no evidence with Jeffrey Dahmer of any severe mistreatment or abuse in his childhood. His mother had a mental problem. She was depressed most of the time. She slept a lot and dropped out of family activities. The father was a PhD chemist and a very busy and very intelligent man who spent a great deal of his time at work.
Pat Kennedy worked the beat in Milwaukee for over 25 years.
So, I mean, to answer my question earlier, was he touched or anything like that? Was he ever dominated? No. So that leads me to be, it's something like it. So it has to be some type of environmental along with some psychological things for sure. But I think most of this is coming from environmental, if I'm being honest. I don't think he was born like this. I think he was born with this type of disdain for hate, because he didn't just do this to anybody. He didn't do it to regular white people. He didn't do it to straight people. He only did it to a certain demographic, which lets you know it comes from some type of theological or some type of rhetoric. It's not just some instinct. It's not just some random impulse. And when you start to break it down like that, well, who was implementing these theories and these ideas into this person? Just because it's what he said his father was a professor? Could be a prime example. Nigga, most professors back then was a forced segregation and so many other things. So that would make a difference to me in the sense of saying, oh, his father had a good job, so that means he must have had good values as far as race and things like that, or how he viewed women. Like, that don't mean shit.
Back in the summer of 1991, he was assigned to the Jeffrey Dahmer case and spent 6 long weeks with him. He knew him better than most.
He was a product of upper white middle class. He was educated. He came from a family of means.
Upper white class and educated. How was he educated though? Clearly, he had education on being nasty and dissecting shit and being desensitized to bodies. Clearly, having a disdain towards certain races and I guess you could say homosexual, whatever, you know what I'm trying to say, homosexuals. It's prime rhetoric for someone in the KKK, but I can't say that because I might be taking a reach. Like, you know, like I want to be credible. I have no proof of that, so I just don't want to leap out there. But let's be real. It's all the same ideas and points that the KKK made. The people that wear the swastika in America in the modern times, they have the same ideas. They hate minorities. They hate gays. What do we see these white dudes do? They shoot up schools, or besides schools, they shoot up gay clubs, they shoot up churches or black people, grocery stores and shit like that. It's the same shit. Yeah, they're not called the KKK anymore because they got a new rebrand, new remarketing, and all that other shit. You know, they're not burning crosses anymore. They're just meeting online in public server and private servers and shit like that. But you can still see it's the same ideas that's been passed down from the 1800s, the 1900s, so forth and so on. Why? Because it's the same people being targeted. If you can't see that, you're missing a bigger picture from this. And when you start thinking like, oh, he was a serial killer. He was more than a serial killer. He was a terrorist. He was more than a terrorist. He was what's the word? An agent. He was an agent from the same Willie Lynch and racist principles that's been spewed. That's what they don't be talking about. They try to make it seem like, oh, it's just one crazy off white dude. It's like, of course not all white people had that in them. But I feel like it makes it easier for them to gloss over shit. There's a sense of they already want us to get rid of racism, forget about racism, not worry about that, move on, strap up our bootstraps and shit like that. And then they also don't acknowledge how it's still present and active and have been active even post or after slavery, even still today. The same theories, the same ideas that's still being spewed and still being brought up in young white men. Not all of them, of course. But you won't get any media coverage on how the KKK is still alive, how white supremacy is still breathing. It's not dead. It's not fucking rampant. It's not fucking. I'm not. And when I say white supremacy, I'm talking about in the sense of the old way of hanging and physically torturing black people. Of course, white supremacy, when you talk about institutional racism or economical racism and all that shit, is still present. I'm talking about the literal physical aspect of it. They try to kind of gloss over it and ignore that. But the same with many actions when you see that. When you start to put it together, you start to see that that's very prevalent and that those ideas aren't just, even when I say it's breathing, when you really think about it, it's more prevalent than they talk about, for sure. But I don't know. I got into a whole bag.
Yet the fractures in his parents' relationship left a young Jeffrey feeling isolated. His interests turned to animals. He viewed them very differently to how most children look upon their pets.
He stated when he was a very young child, 7 or 8, he had found
men still getting hung, all type of shit.
Squirrel. And
women still missing. There's so much shit,
bro. The bones
bro.
were there. He kind of took it apart. He said that he found a roadkill and he wanted to see what was inside it, like a raccoon or a dog. He brought that home. A dead dog that he found on the side of the road was hit by a car. Cut that.
Dahmer responded, "I just wanted to see what it looked like."
One way to dull the pain of his confusion over his sexuality and his sinister fantasies.
Did you have problems with daydreaming where you didn't concentrate in school?
Well, in junior year, that's when I started drinking, so that was a problem.
Were you ever called on the carpet for that?
A couple of times.
Yeah. Or did you have problems as a result of that?
I was punished for it.
Yeah.
Obviously, someone getting drunk at 7 in the morning is not a good thing. Showing up at school just reeking of booze.
Jeffrey was...
That's what I'm saying, like, they're not giving they didn't give enough context to me of who they're talking about or what era they're talking about. When they talk about he was a good dude, he was joking, he was social. You telling me his junior year he just started drinking and that was his first time, like, just showing like degenerate, absolute, just no give a fuck about society, excuse me, just that shameless mentality? He had been showing signs of that, man. He been acting like that. That's why I was like, them niggas glossing over that shit is kind of weird to me.
Was a lonely teenager who kept to himself. When he did become the center of attention, it was accidental.
Well, I was on the yearbook staff.
Now he's a lonely teenager that kept to himself. Like, it just, make up your mind.
A couple other of my friends. So we would goad Dahmer into sneaking into various photos for the yearbook, and one of those was the National Honor Society, which obviously he was not a member of. And when the advisor caught a look of it as we were pasting it up, he blacked his face out of the photo, which they then ran, which is sort of a symbol of his wasted youth. Just this blacked out face, you know, the boy who didn't exist.
Jeffrey's complex character meant that while seemingly happy to fade into the shadows, he also felt a desperate need to draw attention to himself.
A bunch of us got together and raised, put a pool in of $35, I think it was, for him to put on a performance at the mall of his seizures and epileptic fits and various acts of weirdness.
So you telling me he just started acting weird in high school? He just figured out that seizure act in high school? Man, stop it.
Durf also remembers stories of Dahmer experimenting with animals. His odd behavior was evident one fishing trip.
pulled the fish out of the lake, just a little sunfish, and took out a pocket knife and slashed it to bits.
Yet nobody had a clue. This could not have happened. I mean, it could have happened in the black community for sure. It definitely could have happened in the black community. But you're not about to go around the average person. Let's take it out of race. You're not about to You're not about to do shit around the average person and rumors and conversations and stories, because your story is very important. And what people think about you is a big part of your story. There's no way that doesn't become a part of it. He's weird. He does the seizure shit. He does a lot of dark shit. You can call it humor, you can just call it dark. He comes to school very fucking drunk. One time I was like, bro, somebody's gonna tell people this story. Man, I heard he fucking stabbed a fish and just fucking stabbed it like 50 times for fun. Like, this young kids, bro, shit get out quickly. Even if it wasn't true, people gonna make up shit. Let alone some shit actually be true. That's how kids are. So you telling me he had this type of weirdness and going about him when he was a youngin'? And he was just this bright and smart and articulate guy? Get the fuck out of here. And then you didn't think there was any signs when he was older? Fuck out of here. Like, the people at his job never seen anything weird. Bro, most people, if you were weird in high school and middle school, you're probably going to be weird when you go to work. You're probably going to not have social skills when you go to work. Most of the time you build your social skills, you're going to learn them in high school and college. When you start gathering yourself some personality and through your 20s and 30s. He wasn't working on that shit. So you telling me his co-workers never seen shit, bro? You crazy as hell. They stayed the fuck out his way, I guarantee that. And that was a part of his story, like, bro. People wanted to be oblivious, or people were scared of him or some shit, bro, because it's no way. There's no way.
I just wanted to see what it looked like.
Not for 9 years. I'm sorry, bro, I keep pausing. Not for 9 years. And he was acting weird as a youngin', bro. Like, fuck no.
As a teenager, as an extension of his childhood fascination,
well, not even 9, however many years he got away with this
began
shit.
to construct fantasies of sex with dead or unconscious men.
Dahmer told me that on one occasion he had seen in the newspaper an account of a young man who was killed on a motorcycle. And he fell in love with the individual just from the photograph. He actually went to the funeral home to view the corpse, but he became so aroused that he excused himself into the bathroom where he masturbated.
Man, what? Man, what? That's why that beginning didn't sit right with me, because everything after's been ass, bro. What? Don't even know the dude that died. You fall in love with him after the man's death for whatever weird reason, then you get it. You don't think he joked and said dumb shit and had conversations with people his age and his peers? Along with, I think that was his father. Looked like the dude, like the actor looked pretty similar to him that played his father in the TV show. So you gotta, as a father, I asked my barber, do you feel accountable? Do you hold yourself accountable if your kid come out that type of way? And he was like, "There's no way you can't. There's no way you can't. To some degree or whatever degree, there's no way you can't feel that way." And that's for a parent that may have been oblivious. I think that's the conversation. Of course, that's the question to a person or a parent that may have been oblivious to their lack of parenting or their lack of foresight or their lack of reading the character of their child. Because even my barber was just like, if I seen my kid like playing with dead animals, like dissecting shit, I ain't gonna lie, I might send him somewhere to get checked out, maybe to a home, because he shouldn't be around normal people. Like, that's not something that a normal kid would do. Like, just in general, like you might want to start the process of trying to get that kid checked out if we're talking about certain levels that this dude was showing. Especially as things progress, it's like, okay, maybe not the first time you do it, but after 3-4 times, after talking to him and you hear other conversations like being freaked out about him, it's like, bro, you ain't about to keep creeping me out and you my own damn kid. But as the father having those type of conversations, and then you surprised, bro? He wasn't surprised. He knew full hearted. And I guarantee you, on some mad, what's that fucking TV show called? On some TV show shit, I'm sure he helped him bury a few bodies before. I'm sure he helped him. I'm sure his father has helped him personally with some shit before. I guarantee it. Because like I said earlier, there's no way that you don't see blood around certain places. There's no way he's a clean person. He's going to slip up. And unless his father and his dad relationship was completely non-existent, unless people in his family had a completely non-existent relationship with him, then I can kind of understand that. But for some reason, I feel like his father was in his life during that time. He was still doing all that shit to some degree. And after knowing your son and having a history of statements, boy, hell no. Hell no. His father knew. His father should feel hella responsible. Borderline should have been locked up for it too. I ain't gonna lie. Back in the day, you used to have to pay the debt of your father. Some motherfucking parents should be locked up if they kids is too criminal. Maybe it inspire people to be better parents. Like, oh, maybe if he do become a little demon, I just can't. If he killed 10 people, I am responsible for it. and if we held people liable, I ain't gonna lie, I'm on some Charleston White shit. On some Charleston White shit, like, we need to start locking up these degenerate motherfucker parents. Motherfuckers that be looking over their kids, still loving their baby. Stop feeding that demon. Stop feeding that nigga that just killed 3 motherfuckers and just came to your house and just, you tucked in. I'm being funny, but let's be real. Like, a lot of parents enable their kids to some degree, whether it's not being active enough or not whooping them enough, or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, man, the father gotta feel responsible, bro. And for the actions of this dude, he should have went to jail too.
This was also a
because I know he did some shit, but even outside of that,
apparent in his fantasy of killing a local jogger.
He thought he would wait in the bushes with a baseball bat. This guy would come by and he'd bonk him in the head and he'd have this guy. And he actually said he went out and waited for the jogger one day with a baseball bat, but he didn't come by that day.
The breakdown of his parents' marriage meant that 18-year-old Dahmer was left alone with his fantasies.
His mom split, and his dad had already left, and he was left alone in the house. But the adults really failed him, there's no question. His parents, his teachers.
Were you pretty upset by that breakup? I knew it was
Scared
yeah,
the fuck
it
out
was
of me.
pretty obvious. Yeah, I was upset. Yeah, for sure.
And it was this that led to the death of his first victim.
Dahmer told me that one fantasy that he had was that he would encounter a hitchhiker, and he would have a narrow waist, broad shoulders, a bare chest. He would not have a shirt on, and he would had very little hair on his body. He would pick up this hitchhiker, and that they would have a great time together and all sorts of sexual adventures. He was driving down the road, and he saw his fantasy hitchhiker.
The subject of Dahmer's fantasy was 16-year-old Stephen Hicks. Hicks was a free spirit who was hitchhiking to a summer festival. This was a common form of transport in 1970s Ohio. Little did Hicks know who he would encounter in this car.
He brought the guy home. They had access to alcohol. They were drinking. They got a little intoxicated. But when the guy wanted to leave, Jeff did not want him to leave. He wanted him to stay because he was lonely and also he was intoxicated. He said that when he tried to stop the guy from leaving, a little bit of a wrestling match broke out. And as they were wrestling around, that's when Jeff grabbed the hand barbell and smashed the guy on the head. Now, he said when he hit him, he wasn't thinking, I'm going to kill this guy. I just want to keep him here.
Done.
Yeah. Brain freeze, I'm fucking ready. What a dumbass I am. 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 Bars. It's gonna be a song watch. This dude is annoying. He mad annoying. Because he's like giving these, after it happened, fake thoughts of what was going through this person's head. It's easy to be like, oh, this is what I was really thinking. Nigga, you already got a history of killing people. The first thing you go for is the head with a weight set, and you like, oh, I'm just trying to keep him here? That's a fucking lie. And for you to even bring that up like you believe that shit, you're a dumbass. And I can't, maybe it's your family, but it just showed that he was around some sick people himself, because even this dude is not even that repulsed by the shit that he's did. Think about the pictures. Think about the way this nigga lived. Even if that was my family member, bro, I would be fucking sick. If I knew my family member was participating in anything that was of any type of standard like that, whether it's dealing with people underage and taking pictures of them or doing any type of thing with them, whether it's harassing or raping a woman, like, no, bro, if I found out you did that shit, bro, I'm disowning you, bro. You're not part of my family. You not, I don't know you. I don't fuck with you. I'm calling the cops damn near, like, I'm not fucking with you, bro. So, in my eyes, how this dude is kind of like, when I said glossing over this shit, it made me think he might have helped this nigga dig a body or two as well. I don't put it past him. Oh, he didn't mean to kill him. He just hit him in the head with a dumbbell. Well, anybody with common sense know that's probably gonna get the job done. Like when he hit the dude in the head, he's like, oh, I'm gonna have a bat and I'm gonna swing directly for the head because I just want to have a nice conversation with the guy. Fuck out of here.
Dahmer cut the body up and placed it in black bin liners. He loaded them into his car and was planning to dispose of them.
Fucking sick ass
stopped
dude.
by a police officer.
And I'm talking about the dude that's fucking giving a nigga leeway.
For a minor
sick as fuck.
As he was writing him a ticket and came back to give him the ticket for crossing the yellow center line, he like any police officer, he took his flashlight and flashed inside the car to see if there's any weapons or any contraband, like any good cop. And he saw the 5 bags, and the guy actually said, hey, what's that?
I don't like how he's describing this shit. Like any good cop. He wasn't a good cop. A good cop would have figured this shit out. Maybe he was any average cop. Like the subconscious thinking of me. And let me break this down and why I'm getting on that point. He was a good cop. Jeffrey Dahmer got away with it. So Jeffrey was smarter. Jeffrey was wiser. Jeffrey was lucky. No, nigga was fucking stupid. The cop was fucking average to a bad at best. And he got away with some dumb shit due to a lot of things that was going on during that time historically. But his depiction, I said, too much leeway for me. Too much glorification, if you ask me.
Back there, and he said, oh, that's just some trash I was going to take to the dump, but I just didn't get there yet. And the cop gave him the ticket for crossing the center line and left.
This was the first of the many missed opportunities when Dahmer could have been
Because who the fuck takes the trash out at 3 in the morning? Nigga, how far is your trash came from your house? That's a telltale sign of that nigga probably doing some shit he ain't supposed to be doing.
Stopped.
And let's be real, he probably was driving more than just past that little line. He probably was driving a little erratic before that. And the cop maybe finding out after give a bullshit story. Like, I'm just giving how I see shit, bro. But I'm pretty sure it was some more shit that was egregious than just him crossing over the line.
This is Dahmer's house. This is where he killed his first victim. He took it into the...
You know how many people in showed that house? I know exactly where he did it, guys. I can show you in. I got the keys and everything. This is apparently where he cut the head off. This is apparently where he put the bodies. This nigga took people on tours that probably got paid for that shit.
Crawl space, and apparently stripped the flesh off the bones underneath there. And when the cops went in there, turned this light on, and the whole thing lit up. Ceiling, floor, walls, everywhere. Just covered in dried blood.
He then smashed
So nobody
the
had been
with a
there.
sledgehammer, stood in the middle of the woods, and spun in a 360-degree circle, throwing the remains as he turned.
He said for the next couple of weeks he'd read the paper every day to see was there anything about this guy missing or anything. Never did. So he realized, I got away with murder. I killed somebody and nobody knows about it. I'm gay and nobody knows about it. Again, from the very beginning, more secrecy became part of his life. It also tortured him. And that's...
It wasn't secret. Like, this dude is giving such like a cinematic bullshit story. His dad, he told his dad. He killed fish in front of people. He fucking killed the body and left the blood everywhere. He's not being secret. I don't like this dude, bro. I don't like how that's just dope, bro.
Well, he's just sitting there.
I'm on his ass right now. I'm dead ass. Like, I'm not letting anything go that he's saying, bro. Like,
You didn't follow me.
and I'm not even having a nitpick. This nigga's just nasty.
He said that set the stage for seeking more contact from a sex.
It didn't last very long.
With no job and no skills, but consumed with a desire to kill again, Dahmer went to live with his grandmother in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, trying to find solace in religion.
And he said when he first came to West Dallas, he would go with Grandma to church on Sundays. He tried to read the Bible. He totally didn't do anything homosexual. He didn't try to get involved with any kind of gay stuff. He said he really thought, this is the way to go. Religion is going to be my savior.
For a while, Dahmer was able to control his urge.
I'm not mad at him because he's just giving how that dude felt about what he was doing. But get the fuck out of here, boy. You ain't getting no saving after some shit like that. You gotta burn 3-4 lifetimes. You ain't gonna lie, niggas like that burning for eternity. Niggas like that write them. If we talking about biblical shit, them niggas are the type of dudes that write their name out of the book of life or out of the book of eternity or whatever it's called. I forgot.
However, this proved to be the calm before the storm.
An interesting thing that tipped the balance for him was he was at the Wauwatosa Library. As he was sitting there reading a book, a young man walked by him and threw a crumpled up piece of paper in front of him and walked by. And Jeff took it, opened it up, and inside it said, if you want a blowjob, meet me in the men's room.
Do you think that note throwing thing was kind of a catalyst, kind of a trip off?
It seems that way to me. Because that's when everyone started.
What about?
Once again, I think it's bullshit revisiting history because I'm sure he just didn't have a new opportunity. He didn't have means to get around. He didn't have means to bring anybody to his house. He didn't have the means to basically be a little discreet about what he wanted to do. The first opportunity he got, all that shit that he said he was trying to do went the fuck out the window, which let me know he was never that serious in the first place. That was probably his grandma noticing some weird shit about that nigga and forcing him to do that shit. But they giving it. I'm just saying how I see it, not saying this is reality. She probably sensed some weird shit about the nigga and was like, nah, you gonna go to fucking church with me. And then they trying to give it off like he was trying to make a change. She probably was fighting that shit every fucking second of the way. As soon as you got an opportunity, boom, right back at it. Fuck out of here.
What does that mean to you? I mean, this thing.
Oh, that's when everything starts to turn back around. Like, boy, stop it. If you had a job, if you had a hotel, an apartment, if you had a whip, if you knew where all the local gay clubs was when you had moved to that new city, boy, you would have been popping as soon as you got out there, boy. Stop it.
Sitting there, sort of throwing out a challenge to whoever, and sure enough, he started following.
You didn't go. You didn't follow the guy. You didn't meet up.
He's still, even after all of this shit, he's still fucking manipulative, and I can see right through that bullshit. Feel sorry for me.
The stage for
fuck out of here.
Seeking more contact from a sexual side with young men, and that led to homicide, and that went on 17 more times.
Incapable of relating to people, but desperate for his own brand of necrophilic sexual contact, in 1985, Dahmer started to hang out in gay bathhouses, where he would take his partner to a cubicle and drug them.
He was a very selfish lover. He wanted to be the giver. He did not want to be the receiver of homosexual sex. He enjoyed.
He didn't want to be a giver. He wanted to be a fucking rapist. He's a taker, nigga. There ain't no giver. That's a taker. But he's literally justifying rape. Who is this nigga? He's a giver. That's such a polite way to say he's a rapist. That's the most politest way I've ever heard someone describe a rapist. He's a giver. He used to drug his people and put them in whatever. He was such a... I glossed over that. He's such a selfish lover. It's not a lover. He's a sadistic maniac. What else did he say? Whatever. He's a sadistic maniac, and this nigga is crazy for even saying what he said, bro. He's a sadistic maniac that's a taker.
Oral and anal sex, but did not want anyone to perform anal sex on him.
Sex for Dahmer was a matter of obtaining and exercising physical control of his partner. But when word got around that he was drugging young men, he was banned from the local homosexual hangouts, so resorted to using hotels.
Jeff met an individual at a tavern and convinced him to...
Nigga getting banned from places. You can't tell me this man didn't have a reputation, bro, that people didn't know. Drugging people, like, it's so clear that he had a reputation in the story about him that he built up pretty fast. He's not even from out here. He moved out there. He already getting banned. He's already got a name that's such a bad story. And you telling me people around him didn't notice this? He stayed with his grandma. You telling me people didn't notice this or didn't hear these rumors? Stop it. didn't feel these things, stop it.
Come back where he had a room here at the Ambassador Hotel. And he brought the gentleman back to his hotel, drugged him with the drug-alcohol combination. And then Jeff himself, according to, he blacked out. When he woke up in the morning, this person was lying next to him dead, and was beaten about the face and the chest and the body. And Jeff figured that he did kill him, but he didn't. He couldn't remember doing it because he was in an alcoholic blackout.
He went.
No, he was enraged. They talk about that all the time with people. He didn't black out because of alcohol. He blacked out because he went fucking apeshit. He went so animalistic. Like, that's what's the problem. He was demonic, bro. And when he got a taste of blood, just like a vampire, their eyes turn black and they hulk out. They were just like it's just perfect example. Finding Nemo with the sharks. Outside of them actually trying to reform. When they smelt that blood, it instantly triggered them to forget all of that shit that's normal or what they so-called normal. And that's what happened. He get a taste of blood. He get close to his goal, and he just he's not a blackout. He just goes crazy, bro. There's too much history and psychology to go believe his story without. Let me slow down. It's too much proof of other people that's done this shit before to act like what he's saying is true.
Went to department store across the street and he bought a very large suitcase, or a small trunk, if you will, and brought it up to the room and put the body in it, and actually had the hotel busboy help him bring the body down to the street where he hailed a cab. The cab driver helped him.
Nobody in the hotel reported this. Nobody in the hotel seen blood. Nobody in the hotel heard nothing. They had his information, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if they had IDs and shit back in the day, but I'm pretty sure they did. I don't know if back in the day hotels required you to have ID. I don't fucking know. But there was no hint of nothing. That's impossible.
Them loaded into the cab.
Because, well, like I said earlier, it wasn't like he went to Ace or a hardware store and had got cleaning supplies and all these different things and had to set up in the hotel room before he did it. He went on a date. This shit's spontaneous, man. He killed a dude like he on some raid shit. He's going to be messy. He's not going to be neat. He didn't do it in the tub. He didn't like. When we see all these fucking assassin movies and TV shows and how these people be getting away with it on these, like, you know, fake movies and shit like that, and how they do it, he wasn't moving like that. You tell me a maid didn't see blood on the floor? Come on, bro.
And
in the mattress.
Dahmer, this is really heavy, buddy. What do you got in here? A body? And Dahmer said, "Yeah, I do." And they both laughed about it.
After the ambassador one, did you find that pleasurable, or was that equally frightening? Yeah. For what reason was that one frightening?
Because it was totally unplanned. It was a total surprise to me that it happened.
That it happened.
Oh, look, he said it. Totally unplanned. Totally a surprise to him that it happened. And there wasn't no signs after that. Bro, for people to get away with shit like this, you have to be a master at cleaning up shit. You have to be a master at covering your tracks. The fact that he wasn't lets me know that it was a lot of fucking negligence going on, even from that hotel.
People of Milwaukee, it was just the beginning of a killing spree that would last 5 years.
Or the cops, even if the hotel said something, we don't know about it. The cops probably, yeah, whatever.
District Attorney Michael McCann remembers the time well.
Dahmer killed 16 young men between 1987 and 1991. We had no idea that a serial slayer was operating in our city.
From this moment,
this perfect orgasm, I guess you could call it. He had to do more.
He said to do that, he'd have to shower with cold water so he wouldn't melt the ice. And it was uncomfortable. It was well worth it.
one way to understand Dahmer's obscure fantasy world is to talk to someone who shares Dahmer's interest in death and bodies. Nico Klaus is better known as the Vampire of Paris. A convicted cannibal and murderer, Klaus killed a man in cold blood in October 1994.
Why is he walking on the streets? Why is he not in a jail cell?
He served just 7 years in prison and is now free to walk the streets.
So I can really relate to somebody like him. I can understand what went through his mind and what his obsessions were. He was...
And he's still free?
He's really concerned with the aesthetics of death, how beautiful they looked like in his eye. This is why he took photographs of his victims. He would pose them in twisted positions.
Yeah, what was the idea?
I'm telling y'all, man. I'm telling y'all. That's what, he wasn't ashamed. He wasn't trying to help people when he got caught. He was proud of his work.
What was it there?
It was just a way to exhibit control, the way I wanted them to look, and to accentuate the physique.
Keeping these photographs then was important to you as well.
I'd use it as a masturbation.
Yeah, and you had a lot of them.
It continued on and grew in momentum, that the passions and the lust became stronger. His want to look for this perfect orgasm, I guess you could call it. He had to do more and more things in order to have this satisfying orgasm. It just started with having pornographic, homosexual sex, and then actually having homosexual sex with people in the baths, and then having sex and killing, and then having sex with dead people, and then having sex with the viscera, and then actually eating the people that he had sex with to get this superb orgasmic experience.
How does a human being get to the point that they can only eat the flesh of another?
What the fuck you mean superb? Don't you mean sick?
Another cannibal can truly know.
And another thing, they keep asking him these questions about why he got the pictures and shit. He don't know. He can't answer them questions, bro. He's too fucking sick. These are questions that you have to break down from a therapist or a doctor as far as analyzing some of the signs that have been documented through other people that has this same type of behavior. You can't just ask that person and go off of that. Like, they asked him about the pictures or whatever, and he was like, yeah, I just used it to masturbate and shit like that. It's like, no. If you ask a person that's a therapist or whatever that breaks down this type of behavior, they're going to say what that dude, like he said, he looks at it like a beauty. He looks at it like art. He is fascinated with it. He's enamored with death and all these other different things. But to say, oh no, I just was taking pictures of it because I just wanted to masturbate, that's just not it. Like, no, like, he was so many other things besides just like horny, is what I'm trying to say.
He was working as a mortuary assistant at a Parisian morgue when he tried human flesh for the first time.
There is a state of euphoria, right? After you have done it, you really feel on a big high, and you are like on the top of a mountain.
During dismemberment, I saved heart, muscle.
Neighbors, the building supervisor complained about the smell.
Sir Patlibur Princewell was in charge of Dahmer's apartment building and had to deal with the complaints.
Somebody told me that it is coming from his apartment, and so I had to call him and asking what's going on. Can't he clean up or what?
How did that go?
I'd either blame it on the freezer or the fish tank.
He said he almost passed out. What was in that?
3 headless torsos.
Yeah.
Stripped of flesh.
That's what I'm saying. They said it smelled like chemicals. If somebody about to pass out, there's more than just chemicals. It had to be a horrific smell. Like, even with, like, when they burn bodies in the army and, like, army people had seen it, like, or they'll blow up something and then they have to go clear the area out and then the people had been burned alive and things like that. They'll say the smell of dead flesh is a smell that you never forget. And it's like, you could say, oh, it smelled like burnt shit, but like it's still like a different type of smell, bro. Chemicals and washing windows versus chemicals and decomposing a body is going to give a different reaction, bro, every time.
The man who brought an end to Dahmer's reign of terror was 32-year-old
Especially-
Tracy Edwards, who after
Especially when you think you got to dilute shit to a certain degree and you just can't stuff a certain amount of bodies in the chemical. Like, there's a certain ratio. it's a certain science to that shit for sure.
escaping from Dahmer was running down a street with a pair of handcuffs on one wrist when he managed to flag down a passing police car.
Had the officer been able to unleash that handcuff, that may have been the end of it. So they went back to Dahmer's residence.
Jeff opened the door. They said who they were and what they wanted, but Jeff didn't have the key for the handcuff because he didn't. The way he got the handcuffs back from his victims was by cutting off their hands.
When they entered the apartment, one of the officers saw some pictures in a bedroom of a skinning of a human being, looked at the pictures, was surprised, then looked around the room and realized he was in the very room where those pictures had been taken. He yelled out to his partner, "Grab him."
When I arrived, I saw Dahmer was arrested.
How do you skin somebody in an apartment, bro, and that shit is not horrifically messy? I could give myself a brain freeze. I just don't understand it.
Arrested on the ground, handcuffed.
He skinned somebody
and I was
alive?
told by the officers to look in the refrigerator. At this time, when I did open up the refrigerator, what I found in there was an empty refrigerator with a cardboard box containing a freshly severed head of a black male. The eyes and the mouth were open. It should be stated that the interior of the refrigerator was immaculately clean.
Who gives a fuck about the refrigerator? Make the statement about why that fucking eyes and head was open. He was even fucking eye holes. He's sick bitch.
In the back was a box of Arm & Hammer baking soda, and on the side were condiments, mustard, ketchup, A1 sauce. And I felt fear from the bottom of my feet all the way to the
Who the fuck notices the shit that's in the fucking refrigerator when there's a fucking body in there and a head in there? Something up about this dude.
top of my head. You can't make sense of anything that looks so bizarre.
Dahmer's killing spree was finally brought to an end. What was motivating Jeffrey Dahmer to kill, dismember, and eat his victims? Was he sane or insane? Jeffrey Dahmer was just 18 years old when he took the life of his first victim. 9 years later, he was driven to kill again. It was after this that the killings escalated. He continued to kill, and for years he got away with murder. No one suspected the mild-mannered, good-looking, middle-class boy of any further wrongdoing.
In a long list of these, I mentioned the judge.
How could they make that statement after all the things that they said went on before he even did that?
Judge that commuted a sentence, the first police officer that let him go in Ohio. When he first got out, he was on probation, but not once during his...
And I think they missed or glossed over the fact that he was already a child molester. But I didn't hear that in here. Of course, I'm skipping through, but I think you would have heard that in the time. I pretty much, I don't know when he committed his first rape, but we got through a pretty good part of his age. And I didn't see that. Yeah, I'm looking. I remember all of that. I didn't see anything there. Bro, I don't think they mentioned that.
His entire time of being on probation, did a probation officer come to his apartment, much less make a surprise visit to his apartment. Also, he was under court order to see a psychologist every month. And some of the days, he had just killed somebody over the weekend and chopped them up and threw them away. And then he was sitting in talking to the psychologist, putting on a front and being cleared to go.
This time was different. They had him in custody, and they weren't about to let him out of their sight. Knowing that it was all finally over, Dahmer signed away his rights to an attorney. From midnight into the early hours of the next morning, he started unveiling the wicked truth behind his evil acts.
He didn't tell us about eating people right away.
In the freezer part of the refrigerator,
So that was January 30th. Yep. Okay. Okay.
they found
The murder, the conviction had came a little later in life. But I was about to say,
individually wrapped and prepared body parts: thigh, bicep, heart, liver.
As Kennedy continued his interrogation, the most pertinent question was why.
There was mental illness in his family, and that's not a stigma. I mean, a lot of our families have mental illnesses. The fact that there was a lot of arguing going on between his mom and dad and when he was growing up. The fact that he felt abandoned. I mean, all these things together.
And you see, they glossed over that with his father earlier. They was like, oh, he was he was a good working man, had a good job. Like,
could they produce? Who knows?
Had his desertion as a teenager left Jeffrey with a fear of abandonment?
What do you account to the fact that you were getting into this so often?
The fact that I was desperately trying to make it so satisfying it never did completely.
But was it just a simple case of not being able to find what he was looking for?
And you met somebody who consensually would set up a living arrangement with you. Would you have abandoned then the procedure?
I don't care about none of this shit. All right, man. I said everything I could say about this nigga, and it's been pretty apparent about a lot of the stuff with the Netflix documentary. Y'all ain't seen it all with him. That was just a little more description. Like, I didn't know he was skinning people. Didn't know he stayed with his grandma and all that different shit. Also, didn't like how the dude was sugarcoating a lot of that shit. And that just goes to show a lot of the mentality around having to be careful with that type of media and how you present these type of historical situations. You can't be light with these type of conversations. And to have someone that close to him kind of leading the conversation was careless. If he was gonna be in that documentary, someone should have been asking him questions, but somebody else should have been kind of leading the conversation and the narrative. But from that dude narrative, man, a lot of shit with him wasn't so bad if you really think about it, type shit. That's what basically how I felt he was coming off, man. But I said Jeffrey, bro, he was just an example of someone less than an animal. Less than an animal. That's how he was behaving. I couldn't, like, I know people want to be like, look how men can act. That's not a man. That's barely even a fucking human, bro. To act like how he acts is normal and average, and that's the standard. Nah, man, that's just is inaccurate. And just like if anybody else, if I seen a woman doing some shit that's similar in her ways of being horrific, if she, like I seen like in true crime I did, the woman that sold her daughter off to a fucking person and he killed her. That lady's fucking horrific. It can go both ways, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I wouldn't want to lump that shit into being like that's all women or that's all men. Like, bro, that's some animalistic shit, man. If I'm being real, and it's worse than animals. I couldn't even think of an animal that behaved like that, man. Like let's be real. This nigga had the eyes was basically, I don't think it was eyeballs in it. If it was eyeballs in it, then I'm wrong. But he had the mouth open. Like, bro, he was having sex with these dead things, bro. And not even that, it was cut, like the shit was cut off. It wasn't even like the body was whole. Like, I believe the dude that ate the dude or something like that at the mortuary or whatever, some shit. Or even maybe even had sex with, at least the body may have been whole. Like, nigga, the fact that you cutting it up is just a different type of savagery, bro. It's just, I don't know. Slinging the shit around in the forest like you fucking in a field full of daisies. Like, that shit's just different, bro. I couldn't. I talk shit about humanity, bro, but that's not human, bro. I don't know what that is. That's some demonic shit. That's some crazy shit. But I'll probably do some more true crimes because that's literally one of the most like popular trending things right now, and I was already kind of doing a little bit of them. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure if I'll keep doing them live, but got a little response. I might keep doing it, man. People love live streams and people love to comment on these conversations. So we'll see going forward, man. Thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for liking and subscribing, man. Y'all real as hell. Peace.